Hey, everybody, and welcome back to We Gotta Talk. I'm really glad you're here today because we are taking a turn for the more serious. If you're even remotely familiar with the platform, you know that once a week on the Substack, so the Substack and podcast kind of coexist, I do a news segment called News for Normies. My background is in news. I'm extremely passionate about the idea of people understanding what's happening in the world so you can make informed decisions, like not just on voting and things like that, but show up in conversations with a level of perspective and intelligence that you might not be getting if you are maybe loyal to one news source or you just check in with the news here and there. So that one small bit of news that I cover every week, I like to pull out stories that are happening that are huge and have a huge impact in the world. And if you've been following along there, you've seen that I've been doing updates on what's happening in Iran for the past, I think, 2 or 3 weeks. So today's guest is here to talk about that topic in particular. We're here with both a friend of mine and I guess a former coworker. Her name is Nikki Namdar. She is a member of the Iranian diaspora, which is essentially just a big word for, people that left a country and now live somewhere else. And I wanted to bring to life what is happening in Iran from the perspective of someone in the diaspora to understand what this feels like for them to witness what's happening, this revolution, which is happening in real time. So we are recording this on, let me check, the 22nd of January. By the time this gets to your ears or eyes, it'll be at least a few days later. So things could have changed. As far as what's happened on the ground. But today we're going to be talking about sort of the emotional and personal aspect of what it's like living through this story. So Nikki, thank you very much for joining me today on We Gotta Talk.
Thank you for having me. It's been so long since I've sat with you and done something like this. So thanks for having me.
We were talking before we started recording. Nikki was a podcast producer and engineer back when it was just audio only. And this podcast has been up since 2017 or 18. So that's almost 10 years. And you were with me in the beginning for some of those episodes.
Yes, in the very beginning. And you always stood out as like a client. You were very like, whenever you came in, we were like, Sunny's coming. Like we were just like
crazy lady.
So excited. Okay. And you were very hands-on too, but not in like a annoying way. Like you just very like collaborative. And I think I prefer clients who are more collaborative and like we work together on it, right?
Yeah, you were great. And I know that like asking you to do this it's a big ask in a way because this is a side of your story that I think I've known about as a friend of yours, but it takes some courage to show up with this, vulnerability because you are experiencing something that people who aren't a member of your community right now might not understand. So I do thank you for doing that. I know you're so like open with me about this stuff, but this is a step up from that. So
very much so. And I'm just so happy to share it because I think that oftentimes people who are not Middle Eastern create maybe their own narratives or they see something on TikTok or Instagram and they run with it versus actually listening to the people who are actually from there. So, and as you know, my father passed away in October 2021 and his lifelong dream was to see Iran be free. He left in 1979 during the revolution. And if he would have seen this, it just would have brought a tear to his eye. He left in 79 during the revolution. He said, Khomeini came and there wasn't room for the both of us. So
I feel like a lot of people probably felt like that. And your whole family, your mom is Iranian as well.
Yeah.
So tell me the depth of like connection to the country. Like your parents obviously from there. Is their family still in Iran?
No family in Iran. My mom left in the 60s and she had an uncle who was actually murdered for being Jewish, actually, while in Tehran. I should say that they're both from Tehran. My last name, Namdar, though, some people will say is Mashhadi, which is a different city. Mashhad's a different city, but we are actually Tehrani. We had ancestors and we come from Mashhad to Tehran. So my mom had an uncle who was murdered for being Jewish. His father opened a synagogue and named it after him. And it's actually still standing to this day in Tehran. But unfortunately, we were just not able to go home. And then my dad, like I said, came in 79. He was in the military. He escaped the military during that that whole situation.
During the transition from, I always get confused. Is it Khomeini to Khamenei? Or
yes, you said it right. Like, yeah, you said it exactly right.
So the first guy was, I don't want to say the Shah, like the good guy.
Yes, Shah
if
is
we have to like say
good as,
Okay.
And I think that my dad always explained to me is like, everyone wanted to get rid of Shah, but they didn't realize what was on the other side, right?
Why? Okay, well, take me back to that. Why did they in that moment? And this was what period? The what?
The 70s?
70s?
Yeah, it
Okay.
was the
So
70s.
why was there that initial unrest? Again, this would be under the former leader. Like what was he saying about what it felt like then?
Yeah, whenever I gauged him about it, it was just one of those things that people just were not happy. And he didn't really say why, except for the fact of like, you're never happy. The grass is always greener was
Yeah.
always the like philosophy, and they didn't know what was to come.
Well, and we should establish too, though, that the Iran from the 70s and shortly prior to that was fairly liberal by today's standards as far as what was permitted wardrobe wise or for women to be doing freedoms that people, get to enjoy.
Yeah.
Talk about that contrast because there I didn't really I mean, until I had some friends who were Persian friends who would say, "Oh, it actually was quite advanced culturally and socially before this change over to the Ayatollah." So the Iran that he grew up in was modern, right? Tell us a little bit more
It
about
was
that.
much more modern for sure. Like women didn't have to cover. It was not Islamic country.
Right. Tell me more about that.
The
Yeah.
ancient religion is Zoroastrian. My family does not descend from that. We descend from Judea. But yeah, that is the religion there, and Islam, being as it is, wants to take over the Middle East, and that's why you see so many flags that have the same color
The
scheme
Islamic
and look the same.
regime or what's it?
Yeah, Islam, the
Islamic
IRGC.
Republic.
Yes, the
Yes,
Islamic
okay. The
Republic.
official term for the
Yeah,
sort of militarized version
exactly.
of Islam.
Yep.
Okay.
Islamic Revolutionary Guard is the actual name. And so they came in and they want all of the Middle East basically to have Sharia law, right? And there are more countries like what Iran was that were just a little bit more modern, a little bit more liberal. And then once they've established themselves in Iran, then they take over Palestine with Hamas. Hamas is a proxy of the IRGC. Then we've got Hezbollah in Lebanon, and then we've got the Houthis in Yemen. So this is all when you hear people say, for instance, that Israel is a colonial state, that is absolutely incorrect. Islam has been the one that's been taking over North Africa, the Middle East, parts of Europe. Judea has one little
Mhm.
state of Israel.
Were tensions high before the takeover then or before the I don't want to say. I know there was US involvement. So I'm going to say probably a politically inaccurate term. So please forgive me if you're a historian and listening, but in general like normie terms. So the Shah's in power, people are like, we don't know if we like him." The US has some level of involvement in ousting him and who takes over next. Talk about what your parents and your dad in particular said
Yes.
about that transition period.
So this is such a good question because I grew up, I guess you would call me a liberal. Maybe not quite like lefty, but I grew up liberal. And growing up, my parents would be like, "Oh, the Clintons and this and that are the people who, destroyed my country." I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like liberals and
You're like the
Democrats are
guy who played
so
saxophone on the Tonight Show?
exactly.
No
Like,
kidding.
I'm like, what do you I never understood when my parents said this, but then I actually looked into history and it's true. Because of Jimmy Carter and because of the leftists aligning
Mhm,
with the Islamist regime, as we're
mhm.
seeing now as well, that's how the revolution happened in 1979. And Persians and a lot of Middle Easterners are seeing history repeating itself right now because once leftists and Islamists align with each other, now you're seeing leftists converting to Islam and this and that everything just explodes.
Right. And I want to say, knowing you personally, Nikki, too, in your heart, like you're not throwing some blanket hate over Islam as a religion. I know you have many Muslim friends.
I
This,
love them,
but
yeah.
I think the point you're making, which is really important to distinguish, is the political and military arm that sort of
Yes.
emerged from this practice and specifically how it's impacted your people in your country. And I've heard so many people in the diaspora talk about the emotion they feel at seeing their country change in so many ways. Like
So
we
many
just said,
ways.
it's the democratic style rights being taken away, the freedoms for women being taken away, these harsh punishments, theocratic authoritarianism enacted. And all of a sudden, it's not how they grew up. I'm hearing so much hurt from Iranians right now. Like, why did it take so long for the world to recognize? Since the Ayatollah took over in that transition, we've been living in pretty much hell for the past, what is it? How many years? I
For
can't do quick math.
40, yeah, 40
Almost
something years.
40 something years.
And those people, like my father, come here, and when they say, like, "I don't support this regime in Iran," there's a difference between being a Muslim and being a terrorist jihadist.
Right.
They come here, and you've got these, Westerners saying that they're Islamophobic, and it's like calling out terrorism is not Islamophobic.
Mm.
It is calling it what it is. I cannot live somewhere where they're gonna chop my head off because my hair is showing. So I love Muslims. They are my family. They are my people. They are very aligned with Persians and Jews as well.
Mm.
So I love how you frame that there is a difference between the people that we're talking about here.
Yeah, I think it's an
Extremists.
important distinction to make. As Westerners, I think we're just so unfamiliar. I mean, not just
Yeah.
Westerners, but like living in a country that for the past, I mean, for our lives, for sure, but for the past century or more has been the
Yeah.
dominant political power, economic power. The world has literally revolved around Americans. So when we're jumping into conversations now about places across the world, we don't have the history and perspective. It took me knowing um people in my life, from Iran, Persians that I grew up with in Pittsburgh, where I'm from, or that I came to know at my college that added the color to, oh, it's not just, it hasn't always been this way. There was a rich history there and things that have really, really changed. So when your dad gets over here, I mean, are you growing up hearing all these stories? Is he angry about what happened? Does he stay engaged with the community? What did your mom say about, having to watch what was happening, which essentially like a decline into some really awful times for Iranians?
My dad, when he came here in 79, he didn't know my mom. He didn't really have anyone here. He went straight to New York City, as most
Mm.
people do. And he met my mom maybe a couple of years later at a synagogue, actually. It was really cute. They were like passing by each other, and he
Oh.
just like looked her up and down and was like, "You look cute." And they were getting ready to get married, and he's like, "I do not want to get married until I know that my parents are okay." His
Mm.
parents were still in Iran.
Ugh.
So we're looking at what, like 1982 now. And my grandparents, like so many Iranians and especially Iranian Jews, were smuggled out of the country. There were smugglers in the mountains that actually would help people like leave the country, go into Turkey.
Mm.
So when my grandparents did that, they went on this like it was like a long trek, like maybe a couple days a week or something like that. And it was so cold too that, like, my father used to tell me that my grandmother's fist froze, like, it froze into a fist and she had, like, arthritis or something in her hand. She would hide it for the rest of her life here in the United States from that smuggling
While she was
out
escaping Iran.
while she was escaping Iran, and they knocked on, like, the first door in Turkey, and I would ask them, I was like, "What did these, like, Turkish people like, were they like, 'Oh my god'?" They're like, "No, they knew that this was happening. They knew this was such a regular, like, situation for them." And they were like, "Come in, come in, come in," and they helped my grandparents get, like, situated, and then they went to, like, this embassy in, like, China or something, and then somehow ended up in Manhattan, and were able to attend my parents' wedding, which was beautiful.
They literally crossed the world.
They crossed the world and they made it. And my dad growing up, like he was here for what, like 40 years. He was never he was not angry in like an outward sense. He was emotional, he was
Yeah.
nostalgic. He missed it. And he's like, Iran is not the place that you see in the media. It's not the place you see on TV. It is beautiful. It is loving. It is just incredible. And he missed that place so much. And we never got to go back. We never got to see it. To this day, we don't even know if we're allowed back because what if they have him blacklisted? We're always able to go to Israel. That's the amazing thing. Like Israel is home as well. But like it'd be so nice to see where my parents grew up. So they're heartbroken. They're sad that they're never going to be able to. Well, I mean, maybe after this situation they might, but
Yeah.
for the longest time they weren't able to.
What's your mom thinking right now? Relatives that you're in contact with, what are they saying about the headlines that they're seeing? And as of today, again, I noted this at the beginning, but like as of today, no US military intervention, even though President Trump has sort of thrown out comments here and there.
Yeah.
I personally, I'm just trying to frame this so people understand. Like I personally have seen a lot of Iranians asking for some type of intervention to help tip the scales in the favor of the
Yeah.
protesters who are dying by the thousands. The internet blackout still going on, so we don't even really know the extent to which these people are being, frankly, tortured and murdered. So they're watching this across an entire ocean. What is your family saying now?
It's heartbreaking. All of us. We're so sad. We're so sad that after, I mean, we've given up, honestly, after October 7th, we've given up on, expecting activists to speak up. and be on the right side of history. So we're used to this at this point, the silence, but
Mm.
I'm just amazed that more people are not speaking up. So my family's really our expectations of people have reduced. But it's been a long time coming as well. And I've gotten a message from a friend who said, "Wow, I wish your dad was alive to see what's going
Mm.
on." Because it's a sense of relief, but at the same time, it comes with a lot of death and it comes with a lot of bloodshed and a lot of things that you can't look at. And so when I don't know how I feel about US intervention because yes, we need the help, but also when Trump makes remarks, which, I don't have anything for or against him or whatever, but when he makes remarks of if they come after us, we're gonna take them off the map. It's
Mhm.
like I don't want this like all or nothing. I don't want Iran to be taken off the map, but they do need help and they need
What
to
would
be
be
free.
the ideal intervention?
Oh goodness. Ideal intervention. I think this goes back. I know I keep touching on Israel, but when Israel is eliminating the IRGC and its proxies across the Middle East, and Westerners cry about that, which, okay, it's an emotional situation. They are doing us a favor. They are doing a favor to Iranians. They are doing favors to Palestinians, to Yemenis, to Lebanese people. They're doing us a favor because the IRGC is not just in Iran. It's not just in the Middle East. It's across the globe. They are here now. They are here with us. They are planted in our government. They're planted in our society. They're spreading the word of Sharia law across the globe. So we do need that intervention and we do need the US to support that. So,
Mhm.
supporting Israel with weapons, supporting Israel with strategy, this is the type of intervention that we need. So if the Ayatollah goes down, this is a blessing for everyone, whether it's Iran that does it, the US that does it, or the Iranian people do it themselves. However way that it is, we need to be so thankful for that as Westerners, but we have such a privileged, entitled way of thinking here. We get to wake up in the morning and be free, speak our opinions.
Mm.
They do not have that luxury.
Yeah, I mean, they're being murdered for walking in the streets in
Absolutely.
protest. And this is
Absolutely.
to say nothing of the multiple protests that have arisen over the past, what, like 10 years, the Women Life Freedom Movement, the Green Movement. There, I mean, I listed them all or a group of
Yeah.
them in a recent newsletter, but the Iranian people have been struggling to rise and have been stamped down time and time again over the past decade alone. So this
Yeah.
is it, I think everyone felt like, oh, this could be different. Maybe this one's different. But I know I personally lose hope a little bit for them when I see this drag on, when I see the internet blackout drag on, when I see, reports. And again, they're probably really underestimated at this point of 16, 22,000 people dead. It's really disheartening. How do you hold on to hope that this could be different? This could be the time.
That's such a good question because there's such little hope. I think the US government that we have now is going to do more than other politicians that were in office, but I think that it's going to be too much too. And no matter what, people are going to die, and I hate that. It makes me so sad. I think the hope is that this is coming from the Iranian people themselves. This is a fight that only they're fighting right now. Like I said, I lost hope for activists, for Westerners who speak up against things. I have not heard anyone speak up, you know?
That's
No.
crazy. I mean, do
Yeah.
you think it's your algorithm? Do you feel like, are you following many Iranians? Are you,
Following a lot of Iranians, they're speaking up.
right?
But I think after October 7th, the support for October 7th had me weed out a lot of people that were in my algorithm that
Sure.
I don't want to have Nazis and anti-Semites on my feed. So
Mhm.
I think that could be a part of it as well. But I
Yeah.
see other Iranians posting too, like, why are people not speaking up? I choose not to question anymore because I've learned that they're gonna believe what they see online, right? It's
Yeah.
like they claim they support free Iran, but at the same time they support free Palestine, and that's a contradiction
Tell me
because
more about that. And
yeah,
we're diving into so many like issues
so
that I wish
many.
we had like hours to discuss. But when we were talking about intervention and the possibility of who could step in, you bring up Israel, which is a charged conversation as soon
Very
as
charged.
people say that word these days. Um, I want to know, beyond what you've already shared, what do you say to the person who will inextricably link the US and Israel together, say whatever whatever argument you give them, the argument back is colonialism, imperialism, putting our way of whatever, and very understandable complaints when the operation in Gaza was happening, the war in Gaza was happening, of civilians getting killed there. There are no
Yeah.
black and white answers of like good, bad, because of the way
Yeah.
that war was fought and because of the way that
Yeah.
these terrorists had really embedded themselves within the civilian population. So when you hear people, it's like a multi-armed conversation every time you bring up one of these things. What do you say to people who would be critical of Israel intervening? And how do you
Yeah.
explain away, like, again, not that you want to, because we all know some of these conversations are not productive.
I literally was just gonna say that. Like, what's the point in saying it? If you want my
But
sassy answer, right? But
I
in
want
reality,
I
yeah.
want no, yeah, I want the answer on your heart, the nuanced one, because people are so eager to take a side, like, I'm only this and
Yeah.
not like, I want the nuance. I want, because I've heard you hold space for example, the desire to see Palestinians be freed from the influence of this type of terrorist thinking. In
Absolutely.
addition to the protection of Israel, people in Israel who have, lived in fear of being attacked.
Yeah.
So I've heard you speak with nuance about it, and the floor is yours if you want to. Not that
I
you're
would
trying
love
to
to,
convince
yeah.
anyone, but let us into your
I
mind.
think the problem is that the Westerner mindset is very black and white.
Yeah.
It's like you're either black and you're oppressed, or you're white and you're the oppressor. And when you apply that to Middle Eastern conflict, it has no value. It does not apply here. This is not majority of the people in Israel are people of color, and there is no white. Like, even I just the other day I went on like Wikipedia, and it said that Zionism is a movement where Jews are trying to take over through the colonialism of like Palestine. I'm like, this is exactly why people should not be writing wiki pages, because that's not true at all. If you
What
look,
is Zionism to you?
Zionism to me is the Jews being able, it's a land back movement. If we really want to use the terms, it's a land back movement. The land was historically theirs, and it allows them to, you know, live in their homelands. But that's not to say it eliminates Arabs, and it does not eliminate Christians. It actually means that everyone lives in harmony.
Mm,
That's what Zionism is. But they've made it into this like dirty word
right.
that has no meaning whatsoever. In the Middle East, it really is, you're either a Zionist or you're a jihadist. Take your pick, right? You want to be a Zionist where you're full of peace and you want everyone to have their homeland and you want everyone to be comfortable there, you're a Zionist. If you're the opposite, you're a jihadist, and that means you want to eliminate all Jews. So take your pick, right? I choose to be on the side of Zionism because I know what it means.
And it's
Jews,
not the definition that's been spreading on social media of like
it's
this
not.
aggressive must get rid of everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely not. If anything, you see Jews, Muslims, and Christians have lived in peace in that area for centuries. So no, that's not what it is. So I think people are misled. I want to be able to tell them, I'm so sorry, but you've been misled. You have been brainwashed, and I don't use brainwash casually. So there was many years ago. Do you remember there was a time where people were like posting Free Palestine on just every random post, right? Any random post on like social media, people would write like Free Palestine or put like a Palestinian flag, unrelated to anything. This is what Middle Easterners know as the Operation Watermelon. This was something that was created by the IRGC. They knew that if they spread fake news on social media, that Gen Z and activists would eat it up and believe it. None of it is true whatsoever.
What I'm hearing you say is some of this media is being used to manipulate the broader discussion
Yes.
related to what we're seeing.
Yes. Free Palestine was created by the IRGC. So it was a play on Free Iran, except the people that Free Iran is fighting against are the same people that created Free Palestine. It's not to say that Palestinians do not have a struggle. They absolutely do have a struggle. But their problem is not created by Israel, is created by the military in Iran.
So that's how I think a lot of these things connect. And that's why I'm encouraging people to like follow stories over a period of time, right? Because if you're dipping in on Iran as a sort of disparate event, unrelated, you're not understanding, like we said earlier in the conversation, the government forces at work, that what it used to be, what it could be again, what
Yeah.
people are, how they're suffering. And so I knew this conversation would be multi-dimensional in that way, because you do have to bring a broader context of understanding.
For sure.
When we're talking about who we're trying to get out of power, it's it's people behind some pretty nasty stuff.
Very much so. So that's why I say it's not black and white. It's great that you're looking at the broader picture. You're looking at the nuance. It's not simply just people of color are oppressed and Israel's white people, because first of all, they're not white people, right? Iran is the snake in the situation. They created all of these
The
problems.
government, the
The
ruling class.
government,
Yeah, not the people who have
not
been
the
living
people.
under oppression due to that group.
Exactly.
Yeah. What do you what other things do you wish Westerners or maybe Americans specifically understood about what's happening in Iran? And we can take that as broad as we want to related topics too, that you think it's just not clicking.
Yeah. I wish I just think they should listen to us more. I just feel like they're not. I think people around in the US especially like want so badly to be an ally
Mm.
that they're not even listening to us. We're erased in our own conversation. So I think that they really need to scale it back, erase it. Like if there was a way, sort of like we say, like we need to de-radicalize the people in Palestine, the people in Lebanon, the people in Iran. We need to de-radicalize Americans too,
Yeah.
because they are extremely radicalized in this situation.
Is there a branch of anyone from Israel, I guess if we're defining Jewish, let's say the population in Israel that's been radicalized on the other side? Like, is there an argument to
Yeah.
be made? Or
Yeah.
you're saying it's just a smaller contingent
It's a
because the
smaller
influence
contingent.
isn't as broad as coming from, like you said, this head in Iran where it's funded, where like you tell me, I don't want to answer for you.
Yeah, no, totally. This is a great question. So everyone assumes that Israel is like a settler or colonial state. There are extremists there.
Mm,
Less than 15% of the country are settlers. And so you're talking about a very small population of people, and these are people who are just very extreme about their views. They understand that Judea is the Jewish land and they want it, that they're willing to kill
mm,
Palestinians for it. Like these people do exist,
mhm.
but they're not on a grand scale that people are making it sound. Like 100% of the population in Israel do not support this. People who were killed on October 7th were actually people who were supporters of Palestinians.
Right.
They took them in, they provided medical care. Our hospitals in Israel, for instance, they take care of Palestinian patients. I mean, it's just like they make it sound like this place is the worst place on earth, but it's actually the one place in the Middle East that people go to be free. People leave Saudi Arabia, they leave, Dubai, they leave Lebanon, they leave all these places so they can live in a democratic state that Israel is.
I just, I don't, how does it get there? Like what, so if you're giving these, these facts and this backstory, then how do people make that jump, do you think?
I really think I don't know if it's because like I'm older or what, but I just feel like everything they think first of all, I'm gonna say something super controversial because we have a journalism background.
Mhm.
Journalism is dead. Like it is, I hate to say it out loud, but it's like somebody can post something to Instagram and TikTok and people will take it as fact because
Yeah.
they're not support like it's like when we were growing up, there were rules. There were things that, that were monitored, and it's just like none of that is happening. And I
Mhm.
blame blogging culture. Like when Perez Hilton came to the scene, it's like you could blog about whatever you
You
want.
just needed a keyboard and an internet connection.
Exactly.
Right.
And so anything that's posted online, people are taking it as fact, and it's super frustrating to see that.
What comes to mind when you say that is the story that was or I'm sorry, the picture that I believe was on the cover of the New York Times showing a malnourished child in Palestine. The title of the article itself was tied to the famine or, the blockade of food to whatever extent whoever was responsible. We're not getting into that right now, but we come to find out that much of his physical condition was due to a pre-existing condition that he was born with. The New York Times, rather than front page calling out their mistake the next day or
Yeah.
addressing it, did like a very, very subtle, I think it was a tweet correction. Whatever it was not as grand as the impact that original image held over people. And I
Yes.
think that's an example of how this story was covered in particular.
Absolutely. So we know that in journalism, you're supposed to interview both sides of the story, right?
Mhm.
In this case, when it comes to the Israel Gaza war, who's on one side? Israelis, and on the other side is Hamas. Why are we believing anything that Hamas says? That's the only news source in Gaza. Jews are not allowed in Gaza. Americans are let alone not allowed in Gaza. Who are we getting this from? It's from Hamas. Why are we believing anything that they're saying? So the American media is eating it up, publishing it, putting these headlines out without credit checking or like fact checking or
Mhm.
doing anything. They're just believing everything that's coming out of it. And it's true. A lot of these images that are coming out are not from this war. The numbers that are
That
coming
certainly in
out.
some cases, you're right, has been proven. I mean, I think, and I'm trying to play devil's advocate here because I hear from people, and really since October 7th, when I covered this on the podcast, I'll link those episodes in show notes. But, I've thankfully had some really interesting and mostly civil conversations with people on both sides. And I think people on the other side would say, but listen, hours and hours of footage of starved, young children or dead bodies piled up. I mean, they don't lie. But again, you're saying it's the story behind
It's
how those
just, yeah,
victims got there and who's ultimately responsible. Is it the person immediately responsible, or is it the person who put them in the position in a hospital on top of a terror tunnel to die? I
exactly.
mean, it's the culpability is larger, I think, than the initial picture or video would indicate. And I'm saying this with compassion for anybody whose family is impacted or was impacted in that war.
No, you're
Palestinian
absolutely
family. It's
right.
horrible, but I think you're right. The part of the conversation that's missing is okay, well, how did we get here? Was this a direct attack on a hospital and that's it? It's that simple. And there's only dirt under the ground. It wasn't that simple.
It was never that simple, and every little calculated move that you hear out of Palestine, Middle Easterners know this is the IRGC. Growing up, my father used to tell me stories about being in Iran and this and that, and he said they camp inside schools and hospitals. Like before October 7th, before any of like all these things have happened, we knew. It's like this is what they do. And what do you do when you're inside and you're willing to sacrifice children and schools and this and that? And also, the Israeli military actually escorts people out. There are people who want to be martyrs that stay behind. So there's just more story to it.
What do you say to the people, and we're referring specifically not to Iran, but to the Israel-Gaza war right now, who say, but Israel has some of the best military technology in the world. Why couldn't they have removed more people or warned better? What do you say to that argument?
I think that they did. They've dropped leaflets, they escort people out. People either choose to say to make them look bad. I mean, this is just like Middle Easterners know this. And there's a thing called taqiyya. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it's an Arabic word, but it's like in Islam, you're allowed to lie to make a case for your story. So these are people who want to be martyrs. They stay behind intentionally. Israel does everything possible to save these people, but Hamas is not going to tell the world that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we don't have enough time to go into that war in general, but man, it was
Yeah.
horrible to see. You're
Yeah.
right. And then there were people who couldn't get out of a hospital, but yet they were still,
They were still there, yeah.
yeah,
Any
it's
war
awful.
is gonna have
It's awful. Yeah.
casualties, and it's terrible. It's
Yeah.
just the narrative around it that it's like, why are we blaming Jews?
Well, it's interesting the juxtaposition of these two huge stories, right? And technically, we're in a time where this peace deal was achieved, although we're not certain the status of that. So that story, that news story is kind of on the back burner for the moment while we're all focused on Iran. But when you like pull up and see the connection, I think a lot of people are starting to realize, oh yeah, they're some of the same actors are in this movie too, you know?
Yes, very much so. Even, when you look at videos out of these wars across the Middle East, you know, uh, you see familiar faces in them. These are stage footage from the IRGC.
What would be the way to, like, if you had a magic wand, Nikki had power over people's train of thought for one day, 1 hour. What is the one thing you want people to understand about like what should come next for Iran, for I guess the Middle East in general? Because when I'm hearing you talk, I'm hearing there is a consistent sort of bad guy here, right?
Yeah.
It's that same thing we said in the beginning, that the authoritarian, theocratic, terrorist branch
Yeah.
of this belief system. Um, what is one phrase you put in people's minds that you just like implant there while you have control for an hour or so?
I think I don't know if it's gonna be a phrase that is, like, catchy or anything, but when it comes to the Middle East, don't assume you know or understand, especially if you don't have a stake in it. The Islamic regime in Iran is more capable than we think they are, and they have more of a grip on us than we think that they do.
It sounds pretty hopeless, frankly.
It's sad. It's very sad. Because I sound like it's also one of those things where it's like when I do speak up, I want, I want to speak up for my father who I lost, for my family that I lost. People frame me as, this crazy person or this MAGA nut, which I'm not at all.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
like, it's like, why does it have to be
and
one or the
also
other?
also okay if you were. Like, I'd still
Like,
talk to you.
yeah,
It's okay,
exactly.
I mean, there are opinions worth hearing. I mean, short of platforming actual murderers and killers, it's interesting to hear what people think. And I know you too. Like, I hate that we have to have this qualifier. Literally everyone I talk to in your position, right? So I don't know how you would qualify your politics, but they're like, but I want to make clear I'm a registered Democrat. Okay. Like, I'm not one of the bad guys. I don't wear a red hat. I'm like, chill, bro. Like, it's okay. Why?
People are that judgmental. They think that if you do not believe exactly what they believe to the T, you're an outsider. And the Democrats are going so much more left. It's just absolutely insane now. It's like you've got to follow what they say or it's not. But the interesting thing is that they, like I said, they so badly want to be an ally. They think like white supremacy is, a thing. And it's like when you are a white person talking over Middle Eastern people, that's racism in itself too. So the very thing that you're putting out
Mm.
there, you're a hypocrite.
How you don't have to tell us exactly, but like, how will you vote? Like, will this impact the way you vote? I know that like American policy for the most part is like separate from what's happening in the rest of the world, but I do think that these world events have helped to resort even American politics, right? Because if you believe this, you're part of this camp. If you believe so, will this change the way maybe that you vote in the future? What you've gone through since bring it all the way back to October 7th?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that until the day Democrats realize that they're sabotaging their own party, and like they'll never take accountability. They think that they're just so perfect and they do nothing wrong.
Who in particular are you thinking of when you say that? That could be a national politician, local politician.
Maybe all of I've had this conversation too with people where it's like, oh, well, you're conflating Democrats with liberals and like leftists. And I'm like, they're all the same now. The
Mm.
right and the left are two sides of the horseshoe theory. They're
Yeah.
two sides of the same coin now. We need to realize that we are a problem. Democrats need to have accountability. I was saying, I moved to DC for a year and I'm like, there are, and you don't have to include those, but I'm like, there are Karens across the political spectrum.
Yes, there are.
It literally does not matter if you're left or right. They're
Yeah.
all the same. Like, it's just like, it
Yeah.
blows my mind. But there needs to be people who step outside for a second and say, oof, the Democrats are not doing the right thing right now.
It is not an easy world for like a nuanced moderate, though. Like, I
No.
was told not even to use that word moderate because if I'm a moderate, then I'm some spineless, I hold no beliefs kind of wuss. It's
Exactly.
very, so you can't even be, I mean, you can't really be anything, right? It's strange. I mean,
Very weird.
this way that like we've told people you have to define yourself and you must be all in. I kind of blame hot take culture. I blame social media and the need for people to really be validated is behind a lot
Social
of
media
this.
is what eliminated journalism.
It eliminated independent critical thought too. Because really, and
Yes.
I say this all the time, I feel like a broken record, but like nuance doesn't get clicks. And I know because I know when I put up a post that's like, hey, here's actually what's happening, it gets like 4 likes. Now, if I get on there and I have a really strong opinion, I'll have 91 comments. But it's people are so desperate to be validated that they have no desire to search outside their comfort zone.
Oh my God, you're so right. The echo chamber theory. This makes me think of when I had Orlando Vegans, and my role with that was just to show we had options. I
Mm,
didn't think my opinion mattered, right? I'm like, nobody cares if I thought, because I could think the food is good and people are going to think it's trash.
right.
So my perspective was, let me just post and say this place has options and you guys go. Then I would start getting flooded with comments from people saying, okay, but was it good though? And I'm like, goodness, like, I don't like, for me, it was fine. For
Yeah.
you, it could be 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
they really do want biased. Yeah, is the thing. Journalism is just like, you can't even like Fox and CNN, this, that, we know all of that where their stances are now.
Yeah, I know.
It's so weird to me that we've like, yeah, it
Yeah.
makes me really sad. And you're like the only person who can understand because you came from that world too. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's changed so much.
Yeah, it really has. I don't know. I don't know what the future holds. I think you, to be well informed, you have to be ready to work for your information these days. And I say this too, like you have to have multiple sources. Like I have subscriptions to like 6 different outlets. Every month Andrew's like, "Do we need 6 subscriptions to pay, to read all these newspapers?" And I'm like, "Yes, we do." Because I know from years of reading certain publications the inherent bias. So when I go to, the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times or the Washington Post, I kind of like I've had a feel for how they've covered things for years now because I'm reading it. But I don't think a normal person who's not head down in the news would know that, hey, I'm probably, if I just subscribe to the Washington Post, I'm probably not getting a full story because people have lives to live. So
They want it like really instant gratification,
yeah,
right? Like, whereas yes, we grew up in a time where I wanted to read all the perspectives and then understand everything, right? Like, I try not to read anything that is biased. It's like history is fact. Like,
yeah,
that's it, especially with the Middle Eastern conflict. Whereas now people are like, nope, just get to the point, give me
right.
what I want to hear, and that's it. And then you end up in an echo chamber.
How do you think that culture impacts how people are taking in then to bring it back to Iran? Like what's happening? Like how do you think hot take culture is doing both good, or social media maybe is doing good for this cause and bad for this cause?
I think that, yeah, it is. It's got good and it's got bad. I think they're picking and choosing what they want to be loud about though, and they're not being loud enough about the one cause that truly needs a
Mm,
voice, and that's upsetting. Um, the Iranian people need it right now. They really, really need it right now. And I don't know why people over here just pick and choose. They're like, nope, that's not they
mm.
feel like they're not as well versed in it or something, right?
Yeah.
Because they were so consumed by other conflicts that were happening.
So looking ahead, and as we kind of wrap things up here, what's the best way that this could end?
The best way this could end is Iran staying on the map, but the IRGC is fully eliminated. And in order to do that, the Iranian people need allies. We need U.S. We do need U.S. intervention. I mean, sometimes I sit here and I say, "Why are we always involved in everything?" But we do. We need it. We need somebody to sit there with us and say that this government is wrong and these people need help. So the best scenario is that my motherland still exists and they have democracy. That would be the dream. That would be the dream.
Well, I hope
Yeah.
that's the case.
I really wish my dad was here to see how this ends. It meant the world to him. He was here for since 79 and he always said, "I want to go home. I want to go home." And he passed away and he never got to go home. So
I know you're a spiritual person though. So when this does happen, and we'll be hopeful and put that hope out there that the Iranian people will be freed from this oppressive rule. So maybe in some dimension, on some level, he might feel that. I really
yeah,
believe that.
I believe that. Thank you for saying that. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Nikki. You
Thank
really
you.
just opened up your heart and your family's story to us in a really vulnerable way. So thank you for spending time with me,
Thanks for having me.
for putting some human perspective on this. I usually ask people at this part where to find people, but you do not have to share your social media if you don't want to. So I'm not going to put you in that position. But thank you again.
Yes, my pleasure. Anytime, Sunny. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of We Gotta Talk. Please leave a rating and review. 5-star ratings and reviews help a huge amount in getting this podcast out to people who might like it or find it useful. Thanks so much for your support of We Gotta Talk. Follow me on Instagram at Sunny Abata and check out our latest blog posts at wegottatalk.com/blog.